The Bryce Young saga continues to unfold in Carolina, and I have more updates for you guys. What is going on, Panthers Nation? Carolina Dad here. Please hit that subscribe button. But hey, folks, we're here and we're ready to dive right in and talk a little bit of football. Man, it's been a week, folks. I mean, starting out for me personally, when I look at the news that transpired from Monday to now, I tell you what, man, in these moments, these are the few moments where the national media wants to talk about the Carolina Panthers. I mean, you just flip on any national channel, radio station, and unfortunately, this is the nature of the Panthers right now. You're going to get run through the mud because of ownership, and that's the way it is. And you just got to take it and go.
What are the challenges of facing Andy Dalton?
I don't know what happened there.
He's going to start a quarterback.
Veteran quarterback. I mean, that's news to me. I just was in meetings, but I got to go back up to the drawing boards on that one. Wasn't prepared for that one.
It's only been 2 games, but I imagine.
Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in. This is Carolina Dad. Please hit that subscribe button. We got a lot to talk about in a short amount of time, so let's get right into it. First, if you think you were shocked by the news that Bryce Young was getting benched and Andy Dalton was starting, we've got a clip for you. So Antonio Pierce, head coach of the Raiders, was at his press conference on Monday when the news broke. I guess it technically broke before his presser, but he had been in meetings, so he didn't hear about it. And so a reporter asked him, like right then, and then you can hear his response, and he was just as shocked as we were. Now he's got a game plan against a different quarterback. So right now, what I'm going to do is run that clip so that you can hear just what happened. Like I said, folks, just as shocked as we were as Panther fans. And here's the thing. One, we can talk about this all day if we wanted to, but I'm going to try to keep it moving along as best I can. The thing that's happened, though, ever since this, and I think this is the fortune or unfortunate side for the Carolina Panthers, in that, hey, we're back in the national media. I feel like the only time the Panthers have been in the national media are around trading away good players, firing head coaches, or having our owner throw drinks on people. And we're back. We're back because Bryce Young, the number 1 overall pick, has been benched. And there's a ton of ways to look at this situation, and I've already talked about it, endless time. I am going to be breaking down the film. I know there's tons of folks out there that have already broken down the film, but I am going to have a film session coming out later this week, probably closer towards the game like I did this past week for the Saints. It just wasn't working, and I know some folks believe that this was like a top-down approach. I went on ESPN Wilmington yesterday and talked about it with Randy a little bit. Although I'm sure to some extent Tepper was at least involved in knowing. I don't know if he was involved in making this decision. In my opinion, when I look at this, Bryce Young was Tepper's guy, which I mean, I don't know how you could not get to that conclusion now based off of everything that's happened since and what we've heard. But for me, I think of him as a billionaire owner. Just look at him, a billionaire owner, and he's invested and made this decision. For me, it's hard to imagine that he would just walk away. I feel like his ego would not let him. His ego would have Bryce Young out there driving this thing into the ground, like until he just absolutely knew Bryce Young could not be the quarterback. So I do acknowledge that there is a very good chance that he was in and heard the meetings or knew the decision, or Dave Canales talked to him. But part of me does feel like this is actually a little bit different spin on it than what people are saying where, hey, he was the one who came down. Again, just my thought there. Now, we can talk about Bryce Young a little bit more. And this is probably the bigger question that I have, and I posted it on X yesterday, and I don't know that I've had anyone that I follow acknowledge this. Bryce Young was voted a captain by his teammates. He was the only offensive captain for the Carolina Panthers. At this point in time, how do you manage this situation? And this is what I put out there. I said, I don't know the precedent for something like this. I don't know what happens now. Do you take away the captain patch off of him? Like, do you re-vote? Is your backup quarterback still the captain of this team and trotting out on the field? I don't know. Do you, like, trotting out for the coin toss? I haven't seen this, so I honestly don't know what's going to happen. I think it's just another wrinkle in this whole Bryce Young thing. I mean, he is the captain of your football team, the captain of the offense. Dave Canales has said so much positive stuff about this kid since he got here, why he wanted to come here. And then all of a sudden you're just going to rip that off. It's hard to imagine Bryce rebounding. And I know I've listened to Jake Delhomme. I listened to Steve Smith. The local guys talk about this on the radio yesterday. And they both are in the direction they think it's a good thing. I do think it's a good thing for him to sit, but I think he should have sat a long time ago. And I don't know if it's too late, if his ego is going to be damaged, if he's going to be able to rebound, if he's going to be able to harden himself to come back and be a good, decent, football player for the Carolina Panthers. I can't tell you. It's a tough situation right now. Now, one of the analogies that I really liked with Steve Smith Sr. when he was on Unsportsmanlike, I was driving into work. One of the few times now where I listen to national radio because I just know everyone's going to be talking about it. And I don't hate national radio. I like our local coverage. But the reason I like local is because they talk about us. And so it's like, oh, you know what? Let's listen to these folks go in on the Carolina Panthers, which everyone has done. But Steve Smith Sr. was on there yesterday, and he kind of likened this analogy between Bryce and Andy Dalton and what you're going to see. He said, think about it this way. If you had an emergency, whatever it was, something happened to you, you needed to get to the hospital, are you going to trust your 14, 15-year-old kid that has a learner's permit to get you there? Or are you going to call in an EMS and have them take you to the hospital? And I think that was the difference in talking about Bryce Young as the quarterback versus Andy Dalton as the quarterback. I don't know, when we talk about Andy Dalton, the EMS, it could be your grandpa, no offense, taking you there. That's not to say that I don't think that Andy's going to do well, but I do think it's like we do have to acknowledge that. It's like both ends of the spectrum. A quarterback that really hasn't played one game last year. Outside of that was kind of a journeyman, played for the Saints. So I don't know. I mean, the one upside for Andy Dalton is he has won his last 4 starts, or he's 4-0 all-time against the Raiders, but I don't think any of that matters. I pull up the weekly NFL football capsules that preview the games, and there's some good stuff on there, but then there's also just some bad stuff. And not bad stuff, meaning like irrelevant information. They're like, Deontay Johnson's last touchdown against the Raiders, last time he played them in 2018 or 2019. I'm like, folks, that was years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. What benefit is that? Like, how does that correlate into, like, it's good, sure, good information to have. But here we go, folks. So we talk about being a captain. That's the thing I'm going to monitor, and I would expect our beat writers, reporters to ask about Bryce Young being a captain to Dave Canales at some point this week. And if he's still going to remain the captain, what's the plan? Are they revoting? Are they going to add an additional offensive captain? I'll expect that we get an update. Then we have things now coming out about Bryce Young potentially being traded. And I think that's the next narrative. When you sit a number 1 overall pick and you look at the injuries that are happening in the league, and I think Miami, Tua, out. a lot of people speculating, and even Adam Schefter, he went on when I was listening to, again, radio, I think it might have been Get Up. I can't remember which program, but he came on, might have been Unsportsmanlike still. He acknowledged when he was on there that he can't confirm, like there's not a source saying this, but it would make sense to him that Bryce Young could or would be traded to Miami, to the Dolphins right now. I mean, look at what you would have there in that situation. I'm sure there will be others, the Giants, although I don't think that's as good of a fit. I think the Dolphins have the weapons in the offensive scheme potentially. But isn't it funny? We're talking about offense and scheme and play calling, and the Panthers just brought in someone who is supposed to be a quarterback whisperer, and I'm not knocking Dave Canales. I actually think for the team itself, this is a good thing. Like, as the head coach, like a lot of people think that there's this pair, which it is, like head coach and quarterback a lot of times are tied together for their success that they do or do not have. And Delhomme even said that. He's like, you never go back and think about the record of the right guard or the center or strong safety during a time of a losing streak or winning streak for an associated team. It's always the quarterback and the head coach. And that's just how it's been and how it's always going to be. And their records, how good are they? I mean, it's just like a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. But when I think about Dave Canales taking over this situation and right now making really a decision as the head coach, which some people may not like, and I understand it, because you probably were like, man, we were sold that this guy's going to change the franchise, he's going to change the offense, and he's going to fix Bryce Young. Like, all those things, and there's been variations of him saying those things along the way. So I think it's right for fans to be, upset that we're now turning away from this. Right in the middle of like 2 games into Canales. I know it's a longer sample size, but at least Canales, like 2 games in, the roster looks terrible. I don't know how Andy improves it that much. Maybe he does, and I hope he does, because I'd love to get back to winning football games. But it really is hard for me to imagine that Andy's going to flip it on that much and this team's going to win. I know there's other people out there that's like, man, we should have just like had Bryce play so that, we could essentially tank. I'm not a fan of that either. I want to win football games. It's been so long since this organization won. I just want to see winning football. I don't know, man. It's going to be a wild ride. It's not going to get easier. The questions are still going to pop, and we're never going to know what's happening. And said this yesterday, like, Andy Dalton goes out there and plays poorly. Are you going to turn back on the Bryce Young? Like, are we going to play the Frank Reich, Thomas Brown, who's calling the plays? Oh, Frank's like, I'm doing it. Thomas, oh, now you can do it. No, I'm taking it back. Like, we saw how that played out, and I know that was for play calling, but at the same time, I think you would see the same thing happening potentially with Bryce. So, anyways, folks, I will have the Raiders preview coming out next day or two. Film breakdown, like I said. And till next time, folks, this is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.